Hello, James. James here. Thought I'd make a video concerning, I saw what this
What
afternoon.
about AMC? I don't invest in AMC. I don't know
Excuse,
much about
excuse me.
AMC. Who else we got in here? Hey,
Sorry about the interference. It's talking about the shooting in New York, Buffalo, New York, and we just found out that the victims, 14 victims, was black. And what I heard some earlier, which is kind of profound, there was a guy in New York, a black dude in New York that went on the subway, and he went and tried to throw some smoke bombs and shoot people, different groups of people on, mostly white and other people on the train. And I mean, it came up right with it right away. I mean, bust out his information, bust out where he come from, what traces his background. Same situation, state of New York. This guy, his name is Peyton McGlendon. They didn't want to mention his name. Somebody, I was watching this one channel. This guy, and his name is Information Man. He has someone on the channel. He has a Facebook, and this other man named Lions Den. He actually had the rifle of the shooter that was doing the Buffalo massacre just recently. And on the top of the gun, which they really did, I don't know if they really leaked it out to the media, he had the word Nigger on the fight. So there's a war out here. There's a war against certain ethnic groups of people. And it's sad that you have individuals, that want to cover this up. They want to downplay it. Now, there was a man that was in Wisconsin, I think it was somewhere, I don't know, it was Madison, Wisconsin, and he was a black man that ran into this parade, was predominantly white town. And within no time, I seen a black YouTuber saying that this guy was a racist and things like that, and tried to, I mean, it popped up on the YouTube feed, but they wasted no time, which was a horrible incident, both in Wisconsin, not this one in Milwaukee recently, because it was a shooting in Milwaukee, by the way, but it was another incident before this. This black man ran over these people, went right through the parade, and it was a messed up situation. But but when this guy, who's a white guy, went into a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, to shoot up a store and it's in a predominantly black neighborhood, it was obviously what. And then Information Man was saying on this guy's manifesto, because they don't really want to bring this up right away, and that he was targeting, his point was to target black people. And the reason why he wanted to target black people, because he felt there was statistically that the white population was dropping. And so his version of, if the white population got to drop, then I'm going to start with the black population. And something that struck me that really, really makes sense, what black men and black women need to do when it comes on to social media, you need to stop doing this, and I totally agree with this. Stop with this sexist warfare among each other. Because now this is a wake-up call. There are people that are willing to warfare. You up at a time, you living as they try and tell you, don't talk about the history of slavery, but the spirit of slavery, of continuing one of the groups of people that they wanted to be slaughtered and sacrificed. And then you have black politicians that come in and kind of weather and water it down. And nobody wants to talk about this. And it's really messed up that this happened. And 13, 14 people's lives, well, 10 people's lives, but I think another 14 got injured during the shooting. But it's real out here, ladies and gentlemen. This guy, this has happened before in different places, and it's something when it's so busy looking at so-called black extremists, but every time trying to find a black extremist, but you find somebody who step out and target not only blacks, but they target gays, they target synagogues, they target mosques. But when it comes to actually solving and trying to point it towards a different demographic of people, they don't want to show the picture. They trying to reluctant. And it's just amazing. Like when we're saying, why are they just they setting a double standard for somebody when someone who commit the same crime, who was black, like the case in New York, same state, same situation, different city. This guy, lost his mind, went and throw some pipe bombs and start shooting, and ain't waste no time to track this man down. He led them to him. Even left a paper trail, and they put his business, and they told him what it was. But with this one, they're trying to drag their feet, and it's just that it's something when it comes to crime, mass murders, and shootings, that even when it comes down to the suspect, it's kind of dark here. When it comes down to the suspect, race matters. They don't want to paint the picture, And one thing that Information Man, and there was a few hundred people on this panel, was making a good point. And the point was that in the 80s, in the 80s and 90s, in the inner city throughout this country, black men and black women were getting hooked on crack. And there was no special program. There was no special thing to solve and try to make it a reduced sentence when it comes to drug crimes. But it's something, and even I see someone in New York, a representative in New York says, but when somebody white is doing the same thing, passing out fentanyl, and being drug dealers, the sentences go a little bit lighter. And not only that, like fentanyl, crack cocaine, they both eventually going to cause someone to overdose and die, and whether it's black or whether it's white. But even in the criminal system, it's race, and we've seen it right now. And even some people, sometimes some white people, when we get justice out, when it's someone that do something to their own too. For example, it was a couple cases when it came to rape. Now, it was a white female, blonde hair, blue eyes, all American white female got raped. It was witnesses and everything. The young man, the man who raped her, was a white guy. All American, but he did the most vicious act. And guess what happened? Then the judge said they let him go. And then he committed a serial rape. But there was a situation, and this is in a different state. There was a situation, I believe somewhere in Kansas, that a young white girl had kissed a 20-year-old young man on the lips, and I think she was 16 or 17, and they gave him 12 years. And it wasn't really rape. There was no DNA of rape. The only thing how they did, because he kissed her, he didn't penetrate her. There was no oral copulation or nothing. But I say this to say this, but justice ain't really fair. Then why is it that it's a double standard? See, some of our people that's in the that do justice, whether they're attorneys or judges, even some officers, see race, and then it justified, even if it comes to their own. And you know what they told the young man? We don't want to ruin his career. He's like he's a fine. He made a mistake after for this particular case. He raped a woman, and not only he raped a woman, it was evidence and proof and everything. It's ridiculous. But someone black do something like that, they not only that they arrest him, that he would be sitting in prison right now doing 10 to 20 years for the same thing, and it was witnesses. They like to make the example, but they'll let the serial rapist, who could be a white guy like this, and there was another case where a young white male did something to a baby, and he got off and victimized the family. Justice sometimes ain't really justice. It's not really justice. It's only justice for just them, not for all of us. And it's not you have to go to a higher court in the land and have to keep going and going and going just to get something overturned or get retried. But yeah, this situation recently, black people, the African American black people from this country, the gender war needs to stop. The gender war needs to stop. It needs to stop, because now that they feel like they come upon the threat, and someone pointed this out. This Frances Cress Welsing had this in the book, that this was going to happen when they're going to feel like white males feel like they're going to feel like they're being annihilated. They're going to act out, and some of these white males is going to act out aggressively, and they're going to come to the point that they're going to start going after certain groups of people that try to so-called target the government. Then they're going to try to target the religious institutions, trying to blame it on Jewish people or Muslims or anything like that. Even some soft target like an LGBTQ, because they're really scared. And I totally agree with this. So what they do is this is why you're seeing so much these mass shootings in certain cases. In certain cases, they're mass shootings. And here, now this thing ties also what I've been making videos about abortion. If you have enough white females along with other females aborting their kids, the population is the white population gonna drop. There are statistics that show this out there. I mentioned this in the video. That's why these white politicians, that's why this is the reason why they really behind anti-abortion. It's not for the other people. They don't really, some of them really don't care for us that we depopulate our population among black people. Is that the white population, and studies, they probably have had researchers and studies that show that they're losing. You have a lot of white males. I sent a video out, and I think it was out west somewhere, and there were a lot of white farmers that were losing their crops and stuff to the government, that they were going out of business. and there were white farmers that couldn't feel like they felt inadequate, so they put a gun to their head and blew their brains out. There were white people, and they left orphans, and some widows out there. And then the government takes the land, but this is also comes back to what they did to the black farmers. They said this is not fair, so this administration didn't want to help black farmers, so black farmers suffer a lot. As far as agriculture and things, as far as being part of that contributor. Some of them, like the white farmers, lost their land, but there was some white farmers, some that didn't want black farmers to be equally to do their part and feed their families. And there's another situation where there was a town in Tennessee, that there was a black town in Tennessee that's been there since the beginning of time. They try to do like most towns do across America when they have some kind of big corporation moving in. So they want to rid this black town, and it's called Mason, Tennessee. See, critical race theory is happening now because this has happened before. This happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This happened in Homestead, Florida. It happened to other black towns, and they historically wiped them out. This is happening. So when you wipe them out, you cause them the intimate domain. Now, and it happened in Illinois. There were race riots in Illinois. Race riots, I think, in the early part of the 19th century. See, what some white people don't do is come back around on them. I'm basically summing this up. Everything you do, you've been inflicting on black people and making it and twisting and turning. Some, not all white, but some of these white people, they use the government and use certain political situations to say, no, we're not going to help this, and we're going to run. We're going to intimate domain them off their property. It's like they probably did the same thing with the native indigenous people, and they wonder why. But you forget that there could be another white male who, like a Bill Gates, trying to buy up all the farmland, and then has some connection in the government to shut your stuff down. So, well, this is not fair. I got surprised. They don't. Hey, you see how things bounce around? You see how this thing turn around? So there are farmers, white farmers, are losing their crop, losing their business. This is fact that's been on national news. But they target black farmers, and when black farmers ask for help, they wouldn't help them. In fact, they was hoping for they failed and go out of business. This happens before. You need to know the truth. So it's funny how they don't want to teach this in school, critical race theory. I don't want our kids feeling guilty that we've done this in our past to black people, but you're currently still doing this to black people when it comes to their land, when it comes to the justice system, when it comes to educating their children. You tell them what kind of clothes they wear, tell them how they wear their style. You have a high health disparity between all people. And they know the mortality rate is high, death among black people. And see, as they trying to genocide like they have did to the indigenous people, there's a curse gonna come upon. There's a curse that's coming right behind. So every time when they afflict on us, it's gonna inflict in different areas across this country. It's in predominantly white areas. And when it was the crack epidemic and the black kids, now you have rural areas and urban areas are suffering, overdosing children in predominantly white areas, where your local politicians come from. And it's something how they find the funding and the programs to do that. But when it came to the black population, no one cared about the overdose and they being addicted to anything. The only thing they can do is just put them in prison, in jail, and hopefully that they overdose to death. See how this stuff is coming back around. But they want click and deny. So you see this, and then they even though there's a certain demographic of black men that are leaving this world, God's gonna start taking the white men. Some of these white men in leaving this world, and in fact, it's happening. Like I said, I mentioned out there on some of the farmers, they couldn't, so they eventually they got depressed, and some killed themselves. There's stories like this out there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to tell you, when you do injustice in the earth, injustice come back, but it may not come back directly, but it's going to hit in a certain area where this stuff has been common. When you look at towns like sundown towns that they were sundown towns where if you were not of the Caucasian race, black, white race, if you were black, you probably was other, you had to leave town. Or if you was, they ran the blacks, and there would be riots and racial riots. Till this day, a place like Carroll, Illinois, and other towns like this, if they could have worked together, they cursed their own town. The town came up under a curse. So the life and equality left out because of racism. Past racism left the downfall, but they didn't want blacks in the town, so they drove the blacks out. This has been throughout the United States. They don't want to talk about this, but the reason why certain places and towns and cities and towns and state is because that's one of the things that happen. It's a curse. When I make videos like this, is to really people wonder why was this happen? You need to understand the truth. You need to understand the consequences behind the truth. If people don't come together and put away differences based on skin, based on ethnic background, based on this, your area is going to be cursed. And why they focusing on the black race? They were so worried about the black race that your government's bringing other nationalities to replace. They're trying to replace us. White people are going to eventually be replaced, but it's not be us. So what they did was they think that they can keep the brown population and the Africans and the Central Americans and some of these Middle Eastern people out. So we're going to whiten it up. So that's why and it's really some reason why they saw that the white population, and probably hoping that the Ukrainians built up their population that are considered white. Everything's, and I said, I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. It's centered around race. They don't want to see the population drop off. So the different demographic of people, once their children become citizens here, they have to maintain the dominance as far as pigmentation and ethnic. Even though it could be Russians and Ukrainians and if they could get some white South Africans to live over here, someone probably do, because they want to keep that going. Everything's about thing about race, but the only thing they make about race is that they have to figure out a way to kind of get the other races to distinguish themselves. So they tried to push abortion, and they pushed the agenda of the LGBTQ to put more up under the LGBT. Even though there's some people already LGBTQ community, that was one. And what some black people see that okay, if that's not going to work, then we hope that, and this is what they did in Australia, that they would intermix more. They would intermix. Both races would intermix. and they would be so they feel like they can once, even though that black man or black woman is going into is with that white male and that white female, they know that that they count not that their genetics is going to survive. And I heard a white female said that that's why she wanted to kill with a black, that she would might have a mixed child. It's not in all cases, but in some cases that they want their seed to survive. And some people are that are biracial tend to go find a mate that who is white. Sometimes, in most cases, they tend to go. So that's how some black people see it. So I know it sounds far-fetched, but it sounds crazy, but this is what I hear on with some black people on the black side of social media. Not I don't know so much about Twitter, but definitely on YouTube, because I'll be mostly YouTube spaces listening to African Americans and what they're pointing out, and that this is the reason why some don't really, some people that because they feel according to the Bible that they tried to say that God didn't want this, but they're not the only ones, because really there were some white people who taught this, that God didn't wanted to mix, and there was a man long ago that said that I don't want my daughter being mixed up with it, and it's like and he felt that God didn't want that to happen. This was a white male, but then again at the same time you have some black people that were reading the Bible said the same thing. I'm just giving from different, but they didn't want to blend in, and blend in. And majority of the people of different races, they say that in some cases certain nationalities do not really interracially date or marry other races by mass numbers than black people do. There are some, but not a great masses of them, because the great masses, let's say Latinos, East Indians, some of your European groups of people, certain Asian groups of people, they tend to stick to people that really speak their language, for one, come from the same continents too. I mean, there are some interracial relationships. I'm summing this all up, but the majority of some of these people do stick to their own race. I've seen it with my own eyes. You say, well, what? And the people that do, of course, is love. Some people love regardless of skin color. There's some people that do. But if you're always wondering why did some people find why did some people have a problem with it, this is the reason why. And like I said, I'm giving both perspectives, but they had the same, whether it's on the white side or on the black side, but they don't want to lose their genetics and their genes. If they do that in mass numbers. So this is what they did in Australia when they mixed the Aboriginal people with the and it was a video about this, how they designed that they kind of weeded out the Aboriginal people into the white Australians. This I forgot. I wish I could find that video. And they were sitting around the table. They showed this one people sit around the table how they was going to plan on doing this. Like this was back in the 20s or 30s that they were planning on this. What they were doing. They had on the outfits and everything. But this thing, to sum all this up, is all about genetics and survival. Some things not all people ain't thinking about love and finding a person I love. There are some white people, like other people, are scared they're going to go into existence in the next 20, 30 years. So they're acting out. That's why you've seen all these racial incidents like you see in Buffalo, New York, and other places. And people, and they say, well, just ignore those people. No. Because you see, they have a certain excuse like a Timothy McVeigh. back in the early mid and late '90s. What he did back in was it '95? He blew up the Oklahoma building, being mad at the government. Listened to a white nationalist, read a nationalist, a novel about the white race, and people think, oh, them guys are just talking. They're not. They've been doing this stuff. They've been trying to. Who's going to be the first person to go out and act out their fantasies and try to target different groups of people? People need to take note of it. And then you have politicians and judges who don't really. It seems like they really don't want to punish them because they see their sons and their nephews that is in these young men. He's a good kid. He's an all-American kid. What made him go wrong like that? Watch the language that they use. Even though don't forget that he did the most horrific act to people, they still try to make him out to be like a hero. It's almost like the same thing they do with Hitler. Like, why you keep making movies about a mass murder that they it's like I'm here to believe that certain people like to see people die in violence, even when it comes down to they started targeting someone locally before they start targeting other different races of people. And I think that's sick when you make movies on how someone murdered and raped 30, 40 people. Because you're inspiring someone probably out there, somebody who's sick and demented, to do the same thing. Or going on the shooting spree. Going to some school and shoot up, or going to a grocery store and shoot up. It's not the guns. It's the people. It's not the guns. It's the people with mental status of gun who are able to get the guns. I think they should people have a psychological test, one of those kind of tests, whatever, because it don't do no good. They try, and then if you take guns away, the criminal gonna find a way to get the guns anyway. See, and if somebody would have had a gun in these different shootings and stuff, they could have stopped it. Just like, when they won't go and target the mosque and synagogues and churches and stuff like that. Someone aimed the arm, that would put a stop to that real quick, because these people, some of them who are off in their head, and some of them that are nationalists, that's what they're trying to do, to spark something. But it's something where when it comes down to it, they don't really punish him like they do. And the only reason why, they probably had to put pressure on the government because he attacked the government building. And he immediately had to die. Put him execute him to death, because he's no different. Dylan Roof did it on a certain style. But and it's scary to say this, but there's plenty more Dylan Roofs and this other guy out there. There's other one out there that's did what he did up in Buffalo. There was a shooting in Texas and things like that. So yeah, you got some people that just we live in the times. But I pointed this out, what the black dude did in Wisconsin, the black dude did in New York was wrong. I know that was wrong. But why? But what I was just basically saying is, like, why were they so? When it came to it, they rushed to show the information, but they were reluctant to show who the suspect is. But they quickly show who the suspect in New York City, which in the same state, New York State. And then of course, the president of the United States is going to make something political out of it, and some of the local representatives going to make something political out of it. So you see, his gun rights. It's just someone that's just screwed up in the head rights. But it's like, and but yet, but I do know when it comes to certain people doing certain crimes, black people have to be the face of the worst of the worst. But when someone does the same crime who was white do something, they don't harshly punish them. They don't really they punish them, but they don't harshly punish. You got to really twist their arm and leg to get them to, hey, you got to do something seriously, because it's almost like they don't really want to punish them. It's crazy, ain't it? But a black dude is a serial killer and whatever, bam, no problem, boom, throw him in prison, give him 30 to 90 years. Like that's what this dude did. Come in transit section. That one guy that Frank James did, threw the whatever cocktails or smoke bombs in there. Then he started shooting in there. They caught him with the quickness, put his name up there with the quickness. But when it came to this guy up in New York, who's the white guy who shot 14 black people, well, we don't. We want to get the suspect. The suspect. Why don't you show his name? So we, and like someone said, so we know who he is. And someone had to just recently had to go find out who track this guy down, and what had to go to the web to kind of find out this guy was on the white supremacist list, white nationalist. Talk about targeting synagogues. The first thing he did, first target he wanted to do is go to a black area of Buffalo, New York, to a black neighborhood and shoot 14 people. And he killed. I think he shot about 20 people. 9 died and 14 is injured. I think that's what the news said. But it's just even in the and I guess I'm saying even in the justice system, it's just wow. You see some biased stuff, man. I mean, it's wow. You know how the way they let you know about the crime and the victims. And again, you know, it's just and the messed up thing when that church shooting was down there in Charleston that time. I believe that was Charleston back in 2017. Was it 2016 or 2017 when the 9 black church members got shot? Did you know what the cop did on Dylan Rue? They took him to Burger King to get a sandwich after he murdered 9 people. They actually stopped and got him some food before they locked him up. I have never heard him taking a black suspect request to get some food as he just murdered 9-10 people and say, "Can you stop on a stop by a pizza shop and give me a pizza before I go to jail?" This is stuff that we talk about, even the way the justice system is. But the reason why he did it, because it was dealing around race. And some people just ignore, like, no, it's in the past, no, there's no racism. You got some black people saying, no, it's not because of your race, it's not because of your that. And then you hear about some black kid getting called the N-word at school. But it's not about race, though. You get some teacher that tell them, you're going to pick cotton. We're going to teach you how to pick cotton. But it's not about race, though. It's a history lesson. And then they say, we're not going to make them feel bad about critical race theory. We're not going to make our white children, but yet some of these people's white children are calling the black children the N-word, which is unprovoked. And there's countless article after articles. There are black doctors that being, black doctor specialists that have been discriminating, black health, and all because they want to see black suffering to death. You got some people that's sick like that. Even if they have abortion, black women have abortion, they suffer to death. But is the whole point about it, like I mentioned, is to annihilate, to use black people got so much hatred towards them that they literally trying to do like what they did to the native indigenous people. Hope that find different ways to reduce the population. Like I mentioned before, black people shoot at black people, killing black people. That don't work. Next thing you know, secondly, push a certain agenda on them. So the men don't want the women don't want the men at mass numbers. That's gonna cut down them having bringing in future black children. Two, the third way is just, and some people say, well, let them go on here, even though you can just go on to another a different person of the opposite of a different ethnic background and push more of that too. It's okay. So black people looking at it like, oh, I see what they're doing. This ain't really about love on the LGBTQ part or on the certain issues with the interracial thing. This is about racial survival. This is strategically doing this. You need to understand what's going on in certain cases. I'm not saying that everybody thinks like that. Not every white person feels that way. But for the white people that are probably wondering, why is this thing is happening? You have people that live next door to you, be in the same area to you, may represent you, feel this way. Maybe you may not think that they feel that way, but they do. They do. And it's so subtly. And they will justify it and say, well, look at the crime in Chicago, Baltimore. And they look at a black section because it's carjackings and things like that, and they might even use a Margaret Sanger playbook that, well, if we do that, we eliminate them black, so we have black boys. I'm telling you how warfare is. White supremacy flips, not that thinking flips 3 or 4 times. He's like, wow, yes. They really don't want to see you in existence. And why some of them still in existence, they're still trying to bound you in different ways. Through your educational, your healthcare, your job, where you live, where your business at. You prosper, and they were jealous when blacks did this in the early 19th, 20th century. They seen that why is the blacks are prospering. So we have to make up something to say, maybe make an agenda that they ain't paying their taxes. So we have to do an eminent domain on the business. So it puts you in poverty. Then you get into poverty, you get among each other, you kill each other, you get jealous, then you get angry at each other, then you kill each other off. It don't affect them. This is why black men and black women, we need to stop warring against each other. Because this is the overall plan. When they set, there's a scripture on how the nations will try to deal with Israel because they couldn't curse a people who curse a people. And it was a scripture where there was a man named Balaam. I think his name is Balaam. And it was trying to get this one man who was a prophet. And he said, I want you to go up to the mountain and I want you to speak over these children of Israel. And so, he gave him a certain amount of money. And he said, because I heard that you have powerful words. But he couldn't speak it to him. But there's a scripture in it that hoped that maybe, but if the Israel speak a curse among themselves, they would be cursed within to bring them down. See, some people are like that man that paid that prophet. They want, when it comes with target, and it like the ancient Hebrews is like the black folks. More you speak a curse upon each other, more you quarrel with each other, and quarrel and death one another. The population to drop, and they institutionalize the rest of you for a crime, because you're seeing older black men that can no longer, and they did that on purpose to take part of their years away so they would procreate with children by making false allegations on them. And some are coming out in their 60s and 70s for a bogus crime. Gonna find out you have places like this is set in design, ladies and gentlemen, to take it down. Then the young men to do something, and sadly some of our young men are going back into the prison and get caught up in this crazy system, and they start refilling the prison back up again. This the Gen Z generation, along with some millennials, get them in the years. So you have to put them behind bars for the next 20, 30 years. And some of it's some people individually, their own behavior, they don't understand this. Some do and some just don't. And a lot of it has to do with the upbringing and what kind of music they listen to. And some other things too. But it's all set and designed to take us out as a people. They've been trying to figure out different ways to take us out. And they'll use someone that looked like us to finish the rest of us to go out. That's how sophisticated it is. Don't matter if they're in the White House or they're in the State House. Because it's all about this. And so the Most High will see all this, is when they do this plan, He's having a plan for them and people around in their communities where they come from, with the Mitch McConnells and Joe Bidens and Donald Trumps, and no matter what party it is, these old men, the Ron DeSantis and whatever, there's people out there in their communities having overdoses in there. The young people. Why they're trying to say that our history don't matter. To the Greg Abbotts, our history don't matter. Your pain don't matter. It's just in the past, put in the past. But yet, you don't see what's coming from your people. They don't see this coming. And this is the racial injustice in this country. This is all wrapped this up in one. I'll just loop this all up in practically near 50 minutes. That's what's going on. So each time, it was like, if Israel die over here, the people of Egypt gonna die over here. They don't get that. White supremacists think, and white nationalism, white supremacy, white systematic racism, think they can carry forever. They can't. They're gonna die. It's gonna die out. Or they're gonna suffer what they do to other people. They can't hide it. They can't disguise it. They can't flip it. They can't make law. They make a law, the law gonna go against them. Because it's a God that is over the government. God is over white nationalism, white ideology. The ones who carry the mindset, the direct and indirect. So if there's injustice on impoverished, unjustified, God's gonna make it justified for the people who stood in agreement with that. This is why you see overdose rates in rural areas. I mean, it's nothing to be making fun or laughing at. It's nothing funny about someone losing a relative or being addicted. but and surprised that they see these beautiful children, like black children, like white children, being orphans. They set this, they did this, and you see it and watch some segments. There are black people are addicted too. Yeah, same thing. But the ones overdosing, they keep showing, is white people. Some in college, not your poor, not just your poor ones that stay in some backward yard town. These some ones that come out of suburbs, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, $500,000 home. Their kids is addicted to drugs. Can't blink. Where they get this stuff from? That's why they pass the law. The people who do it. But if the black person bringing that kind of fentanyl, they give him a longer sentence. The white one, they gonna give him as long. Crazy, ain't it? But they both responsible for the death. When it was an Asian hate crime, they show a black person do it, they give them 10 to 20 years. The white person commit the Asian hate crime, 3 to 5. That's justice. That's American justice. It sees color. Yep, it sees color. Even though the crime is the same, the offense is the same. But what about the judge? Are they really fair? Are the rulings really fair? The court system for the offense? So, yeah, this is what you see. It's playing out. It's playing out. It's playing out. Nobody wants to talk about this. Don't talk about that. Don't talk. No. But the reality is happening around them. This to the economy sinks. And we go into a barren land. This is one of the many things. That's why we are going to a barren land. Climate change, the weather, of course. Economy, because administration. Nepotism, favoritism with other people. Giving people, certain people this and other ones you don't. They make an excuse for the ones you owe things to, but you make an excuse for them. For the ones that. So it is what it is. So that's why we're in the condition that we are in today. Because when you look across America, you see once prosperous towns, but they went barren. Bloodshed and violence. Murdered in the womb. Murder outside the womb. That's what's going on. So these people can protest all they want. But in the end, if they try to get their way, we're going to be a barren land. We already up under judgment. And most people can see it because God is showing certain people from all walks of life. That's what's really sad. But anyway, that's my take on this situation, but just give you scenarios of justice system. That's what's going on in America right now. All right, then, ladies and gentlemen. I hope hope there's been some interesting topics and try to make an interesting discussion. I don't really have video, really kind of did it, but just hopefully try to put it in it good. All right, then you guys take it easy, be blessed, and have a safe weekend. Just pray, stay safe.